Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we are able to upload files here, but we are not collecting any information on the PHP side, so the files are not being saved, and we need to display them here once we are done with that. So let's see how that can be done. So when I drag and drop or select a file, it goes here and shows a progress bar of it uploading. We just need to catch it on the other side. So the other file is the php.ini file, or api.php, sorry. So this is the file that is supposed to receive that file. So what we're going to do is this. Now here we will be receiving all kinds of requests. So let's use the server to know when a request is coming in. So here, if the request method, if that request method is equal to post, that's how we figure it out in PHP. Okay. Then I want us to always return JSON. Now we can change the header to say header data type JSON and so on, but let's handle that on our own. So what we're gonna do is let's create an array called info, and then down here I want to echo info, but I can't echo info directly, so I'm going to convert it to a string using JSON encode, like so. So remember that anything you echo here is the result. So I'm echoing a JSON version of info, which is an array. So JSON encode is how you convert an array into a string for data transfer, and then JSON decode is how you convert a string back to an array. So that's what we are doing here. Don't put a closing PHP tag here to make sure everything is still in PHP format and not HTML. Okay, now one thing we need is to know the data type. So if info, let's do this, and not empty. So in the post variable, I'm expecting to find a variable called data type, which we're gonna use here. So here I'm just making sure that something was posted and data type is not empty in the post variable. So if that's true, then we set data type back to info data type like this, like so. So what we are simply doing here is that the data type would tell us what to do with this information. And then we send the data type back with the information so that even the JavaScript on the other side will know what to do with the result it's receiving, depending on what is known as the data type. So here I'm going to say if data type is equal to, in this case we're going to be giving data types to each data. So for example, this one is upload file. Let's upload files like that. So which means we need to do that. We need to send that information. So in the upload, the data type, we have to add that as part of the thing we are sending. So here, for example, we are appending stuff to the my form, but before we do that, let's append one more key. We're going to call the key data type and tell it that this will be equal to upload files. Now the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be receiving requests from a lot of different sources, and all of it will come to this page. So we need to know what to do with that information depending on the data type we give it. All right, so that sorts out that problem. And what's next here? Okay, so we need to send back some kind of data here. So instead of just resetting that and giving us an alert, it should update the table, for example. Okay, so there's table here, which is a constant. So instead of select, we're gonna call this one update, or instead of update, we're gonna say refresh. That's more descriptive. Okay, so this function will refresh the table with new data. So here I'm gonna call this one data, like that. We'll supply some data and then refresh the table with that data. Okay, cool. Now before we have that on, let's make sure we are able to actually upload a file. Okay, all right, so at this point, if upload files is the data type, then we expect some files. Now files will be not in the post variable but in the files variable, and since we called those file names file, and then there's a number on the other side, that would be great. So what we'll do is I'm just going to loop through files. So I'm going to say something like for each files, like that, as key and value. So here I'm going to say file. So we loop through the files variable to grab each and every file, and then upload each separate file. So here we just do move uploaded file. That's how you upload a file, like that. So the first thing is the file name and then the destination. So let's first create the destination over here. So let's create a folder. We're gonna call it uploads with a slash at the end. Then we check if the folder exists. We only care if it does not exist. So let's put a not there. Then let's make the directory. Of course, we need to give ourselves permission to edit it, and recursive true. Just put true there for recursive folder creation. In case you have multiple folders like this, it will create all of them. Okay, so with that in mind, we are good to go. Now, we don't want anyone seeing the files in there, so we can use Apache. We can put an HT we can put an HT access file here to prevent somebody from seeing indices here. You're gonna see how we do that. Maybe let's try file put contents, right? When we create the folder. So the file name is the folder dot to concatenate, and then I'm gonna put an actual file name, which is dot ht access. So what data are we gonna put here? We wanna put some rules in there. Let me put options minus indices, like that. So this is the text I want to put in this file here. So it's going to be an htaccess file, and all I want to put is that to stop anyone from checking out what's in the folder. So we'll see how that helps in a moment. So we save a file, we create a folder, save a file in that folder. That's great. And then now we loop through and move actual files. So here, a destination, let me create it properly. So the destination obviously is the folder, but within that folder, I want to create a file. So the way I'll do it is I will add a timestamp to it. So first of all, I'm going to do time like so, and then concatenate to that time the file name. So the file name will come from file name. So I'm going to put that here, file name, like that. So we put time, this is the actual timestamp in seconds. So this changes every second. So the next time you upload a file, if it's a different second, then it's going to be a different number. But also the file name is usually unique. So that will make sure with this combination, no two files are exactly the same. Now, if for some reason the file already exists, you can always do an if statement and say if file exists for some reason, destination, then alter it. We say destination is equal to, let's change this a little bit. Then right here in the middle, let's add a random number from 0 to 9999, and then connect those like that. Okay, so we just added the time again with another random number there just to randomize it, and then the file name once again, just in case if the file exists. This will make sure it's different every time. Now, if you want, because we're going to learn how to grab the user details, you can create a folder for each particular user using their user ID as the folder name. That's also one way to organize things, so you can just delete a folder once the user exits the platform. Okay, but for now this is fine. So move all uploaded files, but where's the source? This file name is the source. And so this one comes from temp name of file, like so. And then we do tmp name like that. Now there are several things that, several properties that come with file. There's name, there's the temp name, which is the actual file. It's stored in a temporal location. That's why we are moving it from the temporal location to our final destination. There's also the size of the file. If you want to monitor the size, the file size, maybe there's a limit, you can check that and then send an error if it's too big. Also, you can check for errors. But for our purposes, this is fine. We'll move all those files. Now, once we move the files, we have some detail in there to deal with. We need to save. But for now, let's just see the file being created here and uploaded. So let me go refresh. I just want to grab a file, drag and drop one. I'm going to look for a smaller file. Let's see, maybe this file over here, this image, only 11 megabytes. So let's upload, and there we go. So this is the result we get, data type upload files. Okay. So once we do that, now we should see a uploads folder here. That's great. And it is an htaccess file with that in there. So let's see how useful that is. Now, if somebody tried to navigate to the uploads folder, let's see here. You see my drive /uploads like this. Somebody can easily do that to see what's in there. And then they get this forbidden. You don't have permission to access this resource. And that's because of my htaccess file. Now, if I put a hash symbol here to stop these options from working, now I can see stuff. Look at that. So index of templates, and then I can see the file that's in there, which then I can easily just click to download these files. So we don't want that. Let's put that htaccess. Let me try and click on this. Now I can see the file even though there is restriction. So if I have the direct link to the file, I can actually see it regardless whether there is that permission thing. Now the thing is, we could, since these files are not going to be loaded directly, we could actually stop the loading of those files. Any files, we can just forbid all kinds of access of files. So we're going to see how to do that a bit later in this same htaccess file. For now, this is fine. At least it stops anyone that's snooping, but we can add more security to those files. Okay, so at least we can see that we did upload a file in here. So the upload process worked, but we need to save into the database where we added this file, right? We need to know who added the file, etc., etc. Information that's important. So the first thing I want to do is create a function that will help to... Now here you can create another file called functions and then just include it here. I think that's a better way to do it. We're going to require that file called functions.php, like so, okay? And then eventually we're going to be using sessions to store user login information. So let's do session start for now, like so. Okay. Now let's create a functions file. So PHP, let me save that as functions.php. Okay, great. Very cool, very cool. Alrighty then. So what I'm going to do now is create a function. So the first function I'm going to create will be called query, so that we can run queries in our database. This one will take in a text query, and then it will return false when nothing has happened. Now the reason we return false here is sometimes this query function will return results from the database. If it doesn't return results, it will default to returning false. This is useful because you can put this function in an if statement, and then if you get a false, you know that there were no results. Okay, so otherwise there we are. We have our query. Now here we're going to make a connection. So I want to create a single connection to the database while this is running. And it's very easy. You just do MySQL don't forget that connect, like that. And then I want to use that connection in here. So I'm just going to say con global here, global con. So what that does is it grabs connection from the global scope here and brings it in there, because normally you can't access a variable that's out here inside a function. Function is self-contained. So when I do this, I'm telling it grab from the global scope any variable called con and bring it in here. So whenever we reference this con, we're talking about that. Okay. Now to make a connection, you need a few things. First of all, you need the host name. In our case, it's localhost, since it's a local machine. If you have your server online, this is going to be something else. You can check what the MySQL host is on your paid subscription. And then here we're going to put the username, which is root. The password is empty string. If you're using mump, it's probably root as well there. And then finally the database name. So I'm going to call it my drive_db. So the host name, the username, the password, and the database name to make a connection. Now you don't need the database name to make a connection because you can run a query to select a particular database. So that's just something to keep in mind. So these three are compulsory. This is optional. Okay, so now that we have that connection, all we need to do is run a query with it. So I'm going to do this and say result is equal to MySQLi fetch. No, actually it's MySQLi query. So let's run a query there. First of all, we start with the connection and then our query goes there. All right. Now the best thing to do is use prepared statements, but we're gonna skip that for now. Because I don't want us to use PDO here. We could use PDO, but I found that in some systems PDO may give you errors, so MySQLi would be a better choice in that situation. So you need to know how to use this as well. So once you run the query, if the result came up well, then let's fetch our results, if there are results, that is. So how do we know if there are results? We're going to say if not is bool. So if the result is not a boolean, which means it's an actual MySQL result, and what I want to say here, if it's not a boolean, meaning it's not true or false, it's something else. And also there's this thing called MySQLi num rows, and then we put result in there. If that is greater than 0, which means there are results in there, then what I'm going to do is create an array called res, and then do a while loop. So while row is equal to MySQLi fetch, I want to fetch an associative array, so I'm going to use the fetch assoc, put that result in there, and that's it. Then here, let me add each result to that array. So I'm going to say res is equal to row. All right. Now, there are queries that do not return a result because, for example, you want to add 1 to a specific column. You just tell it to add that 1. You don't need to read or get results from it. So then in those cases, it will return false as well. So this one is how you run a query. Simple and straightforward. So now with this in mind, we can, let me get back to the API, and we include that file here, the functions file. So on this API, we need a few variables, and then we need to run these guys into, you need to put these into a database. So say save to database, and all we need to do is run the query function. So let's create a query here, generate a query. Okay. Now let's add some needed variables here. So if I go back to this, we need the file size, we need the last date modified, we also need the file type, and then the file name. All right, yeah. So what I'm going to do is list those things. So type of file is going to be equal to file type. All right, that's the meme type. Then we're gonna need date. Date created. So that's the date. Duplicate, there's also date updated. Okay, so that's today's date with hour, second, and minutes, day, month, year. Okay, so we have the file type, we have the date created, we have the date updated. What else are we lacking? The file name. The file name will come from destination. Actually, no, just the file name itself right there. And then there's the actual file. We're gonna call this the path. Let me do file path like so. And then this will be equal to destination. Okay, so with all these things we've got here, also I need to create a user ID. At the moment it's just gonna be 0, then we'll leave it be. What else am I missing? What about the file size? So file size, here we're gonna say the destination is the actual file. Since we've moved it, we're gonna say file size. So there's a function that grabs the file size like that. Okay, this is cool. Now all we need to do is save into the database. So this is an insert operation. So we're gonna say insert into the, let's call the table my drive. And then we put the columns and then the values in there, like so. Okay, so let's look at what columns we have, and they're right there. So there's the file name, file size, file path, the user ID, the type. This should be literally file type. Let's see here, file underscore type. I think that would be better. Let me change this here as well. What else? Date created, date updated. Their file name, yeah. Okay, so all of this, let me select all of that and put it here as variables, right? So I'm gonna grab the commas like that. Oops, I done gone too far. So back here, let me select this one. There's one more. Then I'm gonna move like this, do that, control right arrow, close that. All I'm doing is putting quotes around these guys and turning them to variables. So do the same here on file name. Oops, what have I done? Okay. Now you can put these on separate lines like so. That way you can see better. Let's remove this. Okay, so there it is. There it is. All right. All right, so there we go. And then run that query. Okay. So let's give it a shot and see if this will happen. By the way, we need to actually create the table. So let's do that. So let's create our database first of all. So the database, in the connection, we called it my drive DB. So let's go back here. Now, here you have to type localhost /php myadmin as one word. This will load your local MySQL database if you installed it properly. So click on New to create a new database. Just paste that, create. Let's create a table here. We're going to call it My Drive. And let's add a bunch of columns. So first of all, we have our ID, and then we have the file name, and then finally the file size, file type, what else? File type, file name, file path, and user ID. Let's grab the user underscore ID, date created, date updated. What else remains? Let's see, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's because of the ID there. What else am I forgetting here? I think that's about it. Okay, I think that will work just fine. So now let's change these to variable characters. Now the int will remain because it's size. File name. File names maybe can be 100 up to 100 characters. Make sure the ID is auto increment and primary key. File size will remain on int. File type, on the other hand, will be variable character. Maybe some of these can be quite long, so let's put 50 characters. File path 1024, variable character. User ID, that's fine. Here we just need the date time. I just saw date time here. Okay, there we go. Same with date updated. Okay, I think this should do it. We can add some more stuff as we go if we want to. Here you can put default values as well. Maybe 0 is the default value. Date updated though, you can use current timestamp, but we'll update it manually, that's fine. Otherwise, let me save. So let's try date updated and put current timestamp, just so it updates every time we update this row. So let me hit save. So there it is. Any item we're going to be using to search for, we add an index, for example, the user ID. If you want to order by date created, you can index that. The file name we may need to search for. Okay. All right, so this looks to be okay. If I click browse, there are no files saved. So let's give it a shot. Okay, I'm gonna refresh that. And I want to drag and drop a file. So let me grab this one. Okay, looks okay. Let's go to browse here. And as you can see, we have actually saved the file size, the file type, file path, the user ID, when we created it, date updated, and the file name. So all the information that we need is being saved right there. And of course, the actual file is saved here in the uploads folder. All right, so that's how you upload these files. Now, the next thing we need to do is to have this list here update as we do our thing. Now, I like the classes on the icons here and stuff. So I'm gonna hide this and just grab what I need when I need it. So I'm gonna leave just the first one here. The others I will remove. So let's go back to our HTML side. So we go to our table. This is the file details table, so the wrong table here. I want this other table here. So this one that has T body over here. And I want to hide these rows. So I'm going to use the HTML commenting here. Hide all these 3 rows up to here. Like so. Okay, great. All right, so in this case, our thing is empty. So no table row in there at all. Then I want to change these and add a few more columns here. So we do have the file name last modified, which is the date updated. File path, we don't need that. I want to add file type and date created. So let me go up here to where the main columns are. I'm gonna do better here. So here I'm just gonna say date created, date updated. Or last updated, doesn't matter. What else? File size, I'll put it here. Let me remove all these break tags as well. Oops, went too far there. All right, so maybe without writing file size, just size, file name, maybe created, updated is enough. Oh, there's size over here, right? So we already do have that, the file size. Okay, great. So I can remove it from here. All right, so refresh, and there it is. Okay, cool. Now we already have files that are in the database right now, so we can have it load immediately. So to load the table, we have to use table.refresh, which we've created, which is this one right here. Okay. So I need to grab the table body here. So I already have a class to use that. So I'm going to say let tBody is equal to document.querySelector table body. That's the style name. So now that we have our table, we can start adding stuff to that table. So first thing I'm going to do is create an element called table row. So I'm going to say let table row is equal to, I don't know whether to use document.create element, and the element will be tr, like that, table row. Okay. So I just want to add a row to this. So there are this will be the ID here. So, or the icon, I guess. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, right? So then I'm going to say tr.inner HTML is going to be equal to, let me use these backticks. They're just above your tab key, I think, and give it some inner HTML in there and say TD. Now I could use the create element to create even these, but I find it better to look at it like this. It's easier to figure out what you are doing than becoming too verbose. 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see how many columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So one more, 6. And I just want to see if we can create that, that's all. And the table row, does the table row have any, let's see here. I want to see if there are any classes. No, there are no classes. But the table head has a class 30. What about this one? 32, 33. I don't know why all these, let me remove. I don't need to edit any of that. Okay, this is fine. So I just want to add to it, that's all. So refresh table. Once I have this, then I can say tbody dot append child and then put that table row. Okay, so that's all we're gonna do, table.refresh. So when I load my page, right at the bottom here, I'm just gonna do something like table.refresh. And that refresh will do all the work for me. So refresh. Now I didn't do anything, so let's inspect and see any errors we get. So tbody is null. Okay. It means it couldn't find tbody. Where is this? Tbody is null, this one here. Okay, so we can't find a table body. Let's try and see what's going on. Oh, it's an ID and not a class. Also, the refresh thing expects a value there. Let's just put an empty string. So here, instead of a dot, let's put a hash because it's an ID we are looking for. So refresh. And there you see, we see that table row happening there and we can select it. Very cool. So let me put some text here and just say text like that so it's big enough. I'll refresh the page and there it is. We have text there. Very cool. So if I run this twice, it's gonna put two rows here, as you can see. Okay, so that's how we add those rows there, but I want those rows to have actual data from the database. So let's do that. So when we say table.refresh, automatically it should go to the data center and grab that information that's required. Okay, so to read that information, we're going to need all of this here, but without all these event listeners. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is grab everything from here. This is in the send, upload.send. So I just want to copy this function over here, but I want to grab everything inside it first, then delete what I don't need. So copy that. So right about here, refresh table, right? Let me paste over here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do here is empty the table data. So I'm going to, the tbody, the table body dot inner HTML is equal to empty. That way we delete all the contents and then add some new content. Okay, so first of all, we don't need this. We don't need this. We do need a form. That's good. Data type is here. We're gonna call it get files. Okay, we don't need anything else, just for us to get the files, and that's it. So get the files. We don't need an upload progress, so we don't need this either. We do need the XH HTML request. An error will occur if we try to read when the internet isn't there. So we're gonna say an error occurred, please check your connection. This is valid, but actually let me remove this. This could be annoying, so let me remove that. We don't need to know the progress. Remove that. This is the only part we need to check the ready state, and when the information gets back. Uploading is equal to false, we remove that. Here we can do a console.log if the information is not good. An error occurred. Let me remove this alert. Also this one here, alert. And this one here as well. Okay, so all of this now will happen from within this part. Once we receive our information, then we update the table. So let me do this. All right, let's remove this here and there, like that. Okay, cool. Now, speaking of which, let me go down here where I copied this information so I can change a few things. So this is on the send function of the upload where we are uploading files. I don't need an alert of what's going on, right? So here we can close the progress bar, but what I really want is to convert this to JSON data. So I'm gonna do something like let obj be equal to JSON, like this, dot parse. So there's a JSON object that comes with JavaScript, and you do dot parse like this to convert any string that was received into JSON if you think it's valid JSON. So once we do that, then we can do what can we do? What information are we? The data type. We can check the data type of the information received. Actually, we don't need to do this here. We can just say upload complete or something, but in case there are errors though. So what I'm gonna do is do this. If obj.success, now we're gonna create this success, doesn't exist yet. Then let's do an alert and say upload complete, like that. Else we're gonna say another alert, could not complete upload. Just that. And so I'm gonna go back to my API thingy here, and I'm gonna create info success, like this, and then set this to false. So I'm setting that to false so that I only set it to true when something actually does work. So here, if we get to this point, things have worked, so success will be true. So then we can come down here to check for success object and then say upload complete or could not complete upload. Okay, that's fine. So I'm gonna grab this part here, take it to our new section here, which is here, and recreate table, right? So I just need to know if success was true. So we create this object, if success, I don't care if the success is false, I just need to know when it's true. Then I can move all of this into there, like so. Okay, so which means object is a thing. And then now I'm gonna have a object.rows in here. What's happening? Right about, let's do and obj.data type is equal to get files. Okay, so then we reload our table. Now, every time, this is a table row we are creating, and once we create, we add a new one, create and add a new one. So we're gonna do a loop here. So I'm gonna do for, this is just gonna be a for loop. So in the object, there's going to be another item called rows, which we're gonna send from the PHP side. So obj, this object is the one that we are sending here. When we echo it out like this, it's a string, in case I didn't explain this properly. So we're echoing every result we get here. We're going to echo it in, because everything we want to send back we'll be putting inside the info array, sorry. And then finally we're going to echo it out as a string. And then here we're converting it back from a string to an object using json.parse. And then we can loop through it. So here object.rows will contain all the rows that are required. And then we can append through each iteration here. So I'm gonna grab that and do, so let tr is equal to document blah 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 tr.innerhtml is equal to, and then over here now is where here I want to just put an icon, but I'll put text of an icon here for now. And then the next table data table row, let me actually do this so that it's easier to see what's what, like so. Okay, so in here is the file name. So we're gonna do this $. That's how you echo out variables in JavaScript. This one will be, wait, what's the column name? So we're getting the column names from here. So file name, so that's going to be file underscore name. Okay. What's the next thing? File name, date created and then updated, and then size. So created, updated, and size. So this one will be file size, and then both of these will be date created, and then this one is updated. Like that. Okay, goodie. And the final thing is the action, so we don't need to put anything there for now. So this is the only thing in there. Oh, there's type, which I forgot here, sorry. Type. So file name, file type. Right? Then let me go to the table itself and add that column. Type. Okay, so this looks okay, but now let's go to the API side and actually run a query with this. So I'm going to duplicate this part here, the if statement. I'm going to put an else at the bottom there, and then duplicate this whole thing. Ctrl+Shift+D for those using Sublime Text. Okay, so I'm gonna go here on the duplicate. This one is get files, not upload files, get files. I don't need to create a folder at all. I don't even need to look for, let's see here, there's a loop over here, right? Let me remove this. The only part I need is up to there. Let me move all this back. So we just need a query here, that's all. The query will be very simple. So it's gonna be select all columns with a star from my drive, and that's it really. And then we can just put the order type, order by ID descending, like that, and we want to limit to maybe, let's say, 30 entries at once. And then we run the query, but we want to capture the result. So here I'm gonna say rows, like this. I'm gonna say rows is equal to, and so if we do find rows a result, so I'm gonna say rows, I'm gonna do this, and then success will only be in there like so. And then I want to put let's do this, shift rows like that is equal to the resulting rows like so. So if there was a result here, because we can do this, because if there's no result, it will return false, and so success will remain false and there will be no rows there. So this is required here. Now if for some reason there is no success, actually we can do something. Let me grab here, let me come down here, one second. We can still add one more, one empty row here. So if success data type get rows, if this one of these is not correct, I'm gonna do an else. So we still need this, so I'm gonna move this out of here. Okay, so we empty it, and then if nothing was saved, I'm gonna just grab that and do this. tbody.innerhtml is gonna be equal to, let's put a table row like that, close it, and then in here I'm gonna put one table data and say no files found, and then close that table data like that. Then I just tell it to span the entire column, so call span is equal to, let's just put a large number like 10. Let me use single quotes there, or I could use double quotes but use backticks on the outside. Okay, then I can even put a style here and say text align center. Okay, something like this. So I'm gonna refresh the page and it says no files found. Okay, so at least we know something works like that, but why no files? So I want to see what's going on. I will inspect the element. I want to see the resulting result. So what I'll do is, right before I do this, I just want to do a console.log of the result itself right there. So I'm going to do console.log like that. Let me remove that parse. Okay, so now I can refresh the page and this is all I get. Success is false, data type get files. Okay, good. So there was no success. It seems things are working as intended. So I can remove that, come back here. It's just that we didn't get any success. So select all from my drive, order by ID, descending, limit 30. Okay, so what's going on? There's my drive, that's great. So how come there's an ID there? This is weird. Okay, I know what's going on. The reason is, let's go to functions here. Once we added all the results here, we never actually returned the results. So my bad, we do return result like that. Okay, great, that should solve the problem. So that's in the functions.php. We were capturing the result but not returning it back. So now we should have some result. So let me close this and let's refresh, and there we go. Look at that. So there's an icon there, there's the type of file, there's updated, created, and size. Now let's make these more human readable, right? For example, the dates. So in the functions thingy here, I can create another function to make the dates more human readable. I'm going to call it get date. This will be supplied a date, and then it will return the same given date again, but obviously modified. So I'm gonna say, in fact, I can just do one line return. Let's use the date function to convert the date. Let's give it a format like this: small letter J, capital S, and then capital M, and then the year, capital Y. Now you can use small letter y for 2 numbers for the date. So I think that should do just fine. But then the date like so. But now we can't supply the date as it is here. We have to use a function called string to time to convert it to an integer. So finally that's what we see. So that function, when we give it a date, it returns a more human readable version of it. If you want to add time, you can still put H, I, S, and then A there to show you whether it's AM or PM. So I'll leave it like this, but then I'll remove this for shorter dates. And then if we go back to the API, right here, when we know that rows do exist, I want to modify some of the data before we send it back. So I'm going to do a for each loop with the rows, and then key and value. This value is a single row. So while we are looping through here, I'm going to say rows key, the current row right now, and then I'm looking for the date is equal to, and then we'll use the get date function to get the version of this. Let's just put that, we'll supply that date. Now this is date created, right? Okay, let's do the same thing for date updated. Okay, cool. Now let's do the same thing for file size. The file size is in bytes, as you can see here. Quite disturbing. Somebody wouldn't know what this is really. Somebody not familiar with computers, that is. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to multiply this, or we're going to divide it actually, rather. And we're going to say, what do we call it? Round it off. This file size, we need to divide it by 1024 to convert it to kilobytes. Then multiply by 1024 to convert it to megabytes. So let's do this like that. So multiply these and then divide whatever this is by that to come up with megabytes. And then I can also concatenate at the end the word MB like so. Okay, so we've manipulated these rows so that as we're sending it back, the data is updated in a more human readable form. So let me refresh. And as you can see, this is what we get. 11 MB is the file size, and this is the date when it was updated and modified. So let me just remove the time in there. Right. So let me come back to the function. I can remove its time so that it's shorter. So refresh, there it is, more human readable. The file name. What about the icon? The icon should depend on the file type, right? So we can add an icons list for the file types. So if I go to my HTML section here and I hurry to there's a part that I muted here, which has an image. Let's see, this is a TXT file. This is my folder. I'm looking for the image version, which is this one, my image.jpg. So that's the icon for the image. And it had a class there correctly. So I'm going to copy that and come back here to the API. So I'm going to create an icon column. And then, now I don't want to, because I don't know what file type this is going to be. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to create an object or an array. So it's going to be called icons. And then here we just need to supply the file type, right? Raw file type. And then it should return an icon instead. Okay, so since it's returning something, it can't be well, it can be an array actually. So what I'm going to do is create that array somewhere. Let's do it in functions. Okay, so I'm just going to say, let's try and put it at the very top here. I'm going to say icons like this is an array, equals an array like that. And let me do this. Then we can put a key value pair. So image/JPEG will be equal to this icon over here like so, right? Then let's put a comma in anticipation for the next one. What's wrong here? I think it's fine. So let's try that. Maybe it works. The only reason it's not showing down there is because we are not displaying it intentionally here. So I'm gonna grab that, put it here instead of the word icon, and say icon like that. Okay. And there it is. So every image will have that. If the file is unknown, we should return an empty one, right? Let me do this. Let's go to function, no, API. So right here, if this does not exist, right, icons, blah, 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 returns false, then I can put my own, let me come back here, grab this, a default value, which is, how do I call this? Question square fill. I think that's the icon name. So that would be like the default. If the file is unknown, the file type, then we will use that. Okay, so I'm gonna refresh. Now, every time we finish uploading, once the uploading is done, we should do a refresh of the table. That's table.refresh. So all I need to do is after the upload here, let's go down to, where is this? Your upload was cancelled. No. Upload complete. And then we do table.refresh like this. Okay, let me go back to the refresh part here and let me remove this data. We don't need that. We don't need that because it will read its own data. Let's go down to where we're refreshing. Okay, so everything is good. So let's now try finally and upload a file and see it update over there. Okay, let me go to somewhere and grab a file that I can use here. So I'm gonna grab this one, this image, and drop it there, upload complete, and then it shows up over there. Look at that. Let's try a file that is maybe a text document instead, or maybe an SQL file. So like this one, I'm gonna grab that and drop it there, upload complete, and you can see how that is showing. It doesn't know this, so user levels.sql, it's an application / octet stream and so on. So that's the size, this is the size. Now the reason it's saying 0 here is because these guys are not in megabytes, they're in kilobytes. So what I can do to help with that is remove the round function. So I'm going to remove this round function because it's the one that's rounding off everything. So let me try again. Yeah, so look at that. It's 0.00000 megabytes. Not good at all. So let's not do this. If, for example, the file size is 0, let's do kilobytes instead. Okay, so we can do a question mark here. If that file size is equal to 0, then let's recalibrate it again, right? Let me do this. So let's remove this 1024, one of these. So instead of megabytes, it becomes kilobytes. And let's put a, is it capitalized or small letter? I don't even know. Let's try that. Still in MBs, right? What's happening? Round, oh, it can be 0 because there's an MB there. Okay, so if it's, let's just do it like this, 0 MB, like that. Okay. So there's 2 KB, 43 KB. Much better mathematics here, so that it knows to show you what would make more sense, right? So there we go. Now we can select these guys like that. Awesomeness. Let me try and add something bigger, like a movie. So there's let me try this. Let's see how that will look once we upload it. Uploading. Boom, boom, there it is. So video MP4. We don't have the icon for that yet, but we will, and it's 180 MB and so on. So you can see here what's going on. Everything is great. We just need an icon in here for the final thing, the download icon. So that icon is the same everywhere. So let's just add it real quickly and call it a day. So there it is. There where this is the thing right there. Download view. Copy that. Go back to API. And where are we? No. It's inside the HTML where we need to add this. Right there. Paste. Let me move that back over here like so. Okay, then refresh, and there we go. Okay, so looking good, right? Looking good. All right, so far so good. Hopefully you've learned something new here. At least we are able to now upload files directly here and see them there. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.